Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sports Hub. I'm Dana Bautch, and joining me today are Alex Strouf and Michael Wengrzyn. Guys, how was your weekends?
It was pretty uneventful. I know Alex had a heck of a time down in lacrosse, but I just pretty much spent the whole weekend here in Point just catching up on homework and celebrating the end of September. Played that song by Green Day, Wake Me Up When September Ends.
And he's woken up now. We got him awake.
Yeah.
Here we are, end of September. It's spooky season almost, and we're excited. But it was a good weekend all around. A lot of good sports.
All right, great. Well, on today's show, we'll be talking about the Green Bay Packers and Wisconsin Badgers games, the Milwaukee Brewers playoff matchup, and the rest of the MLB playoffs, and do a bit of buy and sell. The Green Bay Packers suffered this first loss of the season as they fell 34-27 to the Philadelphia Eagles last Thursday at Lambeau Field, in a game where both sides of the ball struggled during the game. What do you guys think was the biggest reason why the Packers lost this weekend?
Well, we could start with stagnant offense. You can talk about how this offense seemed like they were going from crawling to walking to running. Started off that game really, really hot offensively. And then again, third game in a row, they just fall off. The rushing attack was non-existent in this game. Aaron Jones only had 21 yards and a touchdown. That's only a week after a 19-yard game against Denver, both at Lambeau Field. Couldn't run the ball successfully. Aaron Rodgers finally had an Aaron Rodgers game, 422 yards, a pair of touchdowns, an interception. Obviously, the injuries don't help on a short week. Devontae Adams goes down late. Jamal Williams goes down early. Brian Bulaga went down. You still had Montravius Adams out. You're starting to get hit with that injury bug, as well as the new offense just hasn't been as consistent as you'd probably like. The Eagles needed a win really bad, and they got one because the Packers, on a short week, they couldn't piece it together for a full 4 quarters yet again.
You talk about the offense here, Alex, and how much they struggled during the game. I want to talk about the defense a little bit. Philadelphia was definitely the much better prepared team for this game on Thursday. Doug Peterson, of course, I don't think you shouldn't underestimate him at all as a coach. And of course, with Philadelphia and the defense that they had, actually, you want to maybe call out Derek Barnett for that hit against Jamal Williams, and then he had another hit on Aaron Rodgers as well. That wasn't helmet to helmet, but you could argue that maybe the league has got to do something about this. The officiating too was not very favorable in both Green Bay on offense and defense. But at the same time, you also have to look at the defense and how much they could not stop the run game. The run defense overall for the Packers has struggled throughout the first 3 weeks of the season, and I think they kind of hit the side of the road or something like that, had to stop off, change a tire or something like that. But this was really a really bad week where the run defense for Green Bay really did not step up.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty at all, and you mentioned that. First 3 weeks, the defense looked like maybe they were top 10-esque, maybe even top 5. But now I've been saying it the whole time. Once they see a real offense like Philadelphia, a top 10 quarterback in the league, things are not going to go as well as they have in the first 3 weeks, and that's exactly what happened. Carson Wentz, and they used Jordan Howard, did the Eagles, their offseason acquisition from Chicago. They finally put him to work, and the guy went absolutely bonkers against the Packers defense. Yeah, they're still a solid defense, but clearly on a short week, and I keep emphasizing that fact because it was a short week of rest. However, just not a good overall showing for that Green Bay defense. One that has been maybe the best, toward the best of the league, not in week 4.
Oh, I agree 100%. But also, too, you look at week 2, the Packers struggled big time against Dalvin Cook, tore off over 200 yards rushing, I believe, against Green Bay. Then, of course, last week against Denver, Phillip Lindsay had a very big game as well. I think he scored a couple touchdowns of himself during that game. And then you mentioned Jordan Howard of the Eagles as well. Of course, a player who knows Green Bay very well, played with the Bears for such a long time, but it's just disappointing to see that the run defense is still struggling at this point in the season. I know there's still 12 games in the season yet that Green Bay has to play, but if the run defense can't get set here early on, they could be in some trouble when they have to play Ezekiel Elliott next week when they go down to Dallas, and that's what the big matchup I think is going to be the real test that comes from having to take on Ezekiel Elliott, especially for that run defense.
Yeah, and looking ahead, Mike, I think this is really, really concerning. Coming off of what was not a good game against Philadelphia, Dallas, in my opinion, a much better team than Philadelphia offensively. They're still on contract years, are Amari Cooper and Dak Prescott, wide receiver and quarterback duo down there in Dallas. And Ezekiel Elliott is, if not the best, one of the best running backs, most dangerous running backs in the NFL. It's really concerning going in after what you saw out of Philadelphia's offense in Week 4. So we'll see. Obviously, the long break for Green Bay might help. Hopefully, they can heal up over the week, but it's not looking too pretty going down to Jerry's World this weekend.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that Devontae Adams and Jamal Williams may have to miss some time, of course, with that vicious hit that he took. But Devontae Adams is very critical to this Packers offense, and with him as a wide receiver out on the line for Green Bay, you definitely want your number one guy out there against Dallas's defense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you guys are talking a little bit about this next game, but what do you think these injuries are going to do to the rest of the season? You know, are we going to be able to keep up, like, the Packers' reputation?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, obviously, you have no idea when the injury bug will strike. We ran over just a few of the names: Brian Bulaga, Montravius Adams, Devontae Adams, and Jamal Williams, who Mike mentioned will more than likely miss some time. You hope that something when it comes to guys, especially like Brian Bulaga, Devontae Adams, very crucial parts of this offense. You hope they can be ready for Week 5 at Dallas. It looks like both of them should be, but they are missing Monday's practice. So we'll see. We will see. Again, you have no idea when and where injury bugs will strike. Obviously, the last 2 years, it's unfortunately been Aaron Rodgers. You hope not. Of course, coming into a 3-1 start, you hope they can keep it up, but we will see.
Yeah, injury bugs are going to plague teams no matter what, but it's really hit Green Bay hard the past few years. Although you do also have to look, too. They've had guys go down in training camp in the preseason as well, so they lost a few key players as well. Oren Burks was a notable guy that went down during training camp. So, not having him out there also doesn't really hurt the defense all that much, but he would be a player out there that would really contribute out there in Green Bay's defense. So it's all going to be a matter of staying healthy, having guys especially go against these next set of games. It's going to be a tougher stretch down the road for Green Bay.
Yeah. Well, so far the Packers are 3-1 on the season and will head down to Dallas as they prepare for a big matchup against the Cowboys on Sunday, with kickoff scheduled for 3:25 p.m. The 8th-ranked Wisconsin Badgers improved to 4-0 as they defeated the Northwestern Wildcats 24-15 on Saturday at Camp Randall. After 3 consecutive games where the Badgers scored 35 or more points, the Badgers' offense was held to only 24 points. Were you guys concerned at all with the reduced offense that the Badgers faced off against Northwestern?
Yeah, well, yes and no, I would say. Every year that the Badgers play Northwestern, it always seems like some kind of trap game for them, whether it's they play at Northwestern, where I believe they haven't had much success in beating the Wildcats down there, or if it's in Camp Randall in Madison. Northwestern always seems to be one of those teams that give the Badgers a little bit of a hard time as they play the Wildcats each year. And I guess looking at this game, it wasn't as terrible as I remembered watching it, but it didn't really look like the Badgers had that same offensive weaponry that they had against Michigan. Jack Cohn he threw for about a little over 100 yards, but also an interception on the day, no touchdowns at all. So you don't really see that too much out of guys like we haven't seen anything like that from Jack Cohn this year, which was kind of interesting, but also at the same time not really that concerning. So he'll bounce back against Kent State next week, I'm pretty sure of it. But Jonathan Taylor still had a touchdown of his own, but also the Wildcats really held him to just about under 200 yards rushing as well. So containing Jonathan Taylor is the key, I think, if teams are playing against the Badgers when you whether you're playing at Camp Randall or you're on the road against Wisconsin.
You know you have a really good freaking running back when you're saying, he had an okay game. They contained him to under 200 yards. He has 119 and a touchdown on the ground. Jonathan Taylor had a fantastic game. Jack Cohn, we haven't seen a ton from him. We don't know what is in his repertoire yet. This was a slow game for the offense, sure. Concerning, I don't think so. I think this Badgers team is still really, really good. Ranked number 8. 4-0 as mentioned. It's a conference game, and obviously if you do your homework, you're going to come in and give them a tough battle. Any team in the conference is capable of doing that, maybe besides Rutgers. So looking at what Northwestern was able to do, you mentioned it. It seems like a trap game each year. It's just always very competitive because it's close in proximity and close, obviously, a conference opponent. Not concerning in my book. Jonathan Taylor still looks like one of the Heisman frontrunners. I love that you said they contained him when he had 120 on the ground. Northwestern always plays him well. They did it again, 24-15. It was a solid ball game. Wisconsin controlled it from end to end. I mean, they controlled the pace through the entirety of that football game. So not too concerned. We'll see as they play. You mentioned it, Kent State next week. Should be a blowout, and I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Sorry to step in there, Dana. No. They're playing a non-conference team a week after they played two conference teams back to back. So it's going to be a little bit of a not necessarily an easy test, but a little bit of a breather before they have to get into some of those teams where they play later down the season, such as Iowa, Ohio State, Michigan State. So this will give a chance to the Badgers to kind of recuperate, catch their breath for a game, and then get ready for some of those tougher teams down the stretch.
You talk about trap games. I don't want to say this is one because Kent State is nowhere near the level of the Badgers. However, when you say take a step back, take a breather, it's still a football game. I know it's home field advantage. I know it's a non-conference opponent, but it's still a game you got to focus on. And we imagine they're going to still run Jonathan Taylor till his wheels fall off, and Jack Cohn's going to need to make that offense do better than they did last week against Northwestern. So I think it's still a game where when you look at rankings, they're ranked 8th. You're trying to get to that top 4 spot, of course. You still need to put the foot all the way on the gas this week against Kent State. We'll see.
So we are ranked 8th, but do you guys think that there are going to be other games where the Badgers are going to struggle to score some points and put those numbers on the board?
Well, of course. I mean, Mike mentioned some of the tough games coming up. You have Iowa. You have Michigan State in 2 weeks. You have Ohio State at the end of the month. So, yeah, there's definitely going to be tough games because you're going to play really good defenses, some of the best in all of college football. I think this is still a solid offense. It's the best offensive line in college football. It's the best running back in college football. They'll still be able to put up points, but will they struggle to go for the 35-plus? Yeah, but I don't think that's concerning. It's a very good defense, the best offensive line, the best running back. They're still capable of winning big ball games. And I said it last week, I'll say it again. I think this is the best Badger team we've seen in a really long time, and they absolutely are capable of making the college football playoff.
Yeah, and also too, I should mention this as well. It's not going to be until the end of November, so there's still there's a lot of time before the Badgers get down to this game. But the regular season finale, when they have to go to Minnesota, Minnesota's actually looked like a pretty good team, even though they played a pretty easy schedule the first few games. They did beat Purdue though this past weekend as well, so that was kind of a big step for them, but. The Badgers can't take Minnesota lightly. They lost the Axe for the first time in 15 years, and I know, again, this game is not until the end of November, but don't overlook Minnesota either. They're not a team that you can look at anymore and say, oh, yeah, it's an easy win on the schedule.
It's the Big Ten, man. Anything's possible.
All right. Well, the Badgers remain at number 8 in the AP poll. They'll play their final non-conference game of the season as they host Kent University on Saturday at Camp Randall. After our first commercial break, we'll talk about the Milwaukee Brewers and the rest of the MLB playoffs.
I just wanted to get good grades and to do well. But it also made me realize that I have a lot of career goals.
You're there to get a full college experience, not only participate in your sport, but participate in things outside of that. And it's all about growing as a person.
My coaches have helped me with figuring out who I really am. Their lives are dedicated for us to succeed.
Welcome back to the Sports Hub. For the second consecutive season, the Milwaukee Brewers are in the MLB playoffs, and they'll play the Washington Nationals in the NL Wild Card on Tuesday in the nation's capital. The Brewers finished the month of September with 21 wins and 6 losses, but the crew finished just 2 games behind St. Louis Cardinals in the NL Central in their late season push toward the division title. Will the Brewers be able to defeat the Nationals to win the wild card game, guys? You're laughing over here.
No, not a chance. Max Scherzer is going to absolutely ball out. I mean, let's talk about the pitching matchup and the pitching matchup alone. Max Scherzer, Brandon Woodruff. I don't need to say anything more, I don't think.
You sound like pretty set on your answer, and you're a Brewers fan. I'm not a Brewers fan myself, and I think that they'll at least have a shot. They were able to get to the wild card game. They put off a fantastic month of September.
Yeah.
They're going to be. We'll mention this later. Without their biggest star, Christian Yelich, out there. He'll be watching from the dugout.
Month of September. Yeah.
Yeah, they were one of the hottest teams throughout the month of September. Of course, you got to look at the national standpoint. They were also one of the hottest teams in baseball the last month or so. So, it's not that the Brewers aren't going to win this game, but I think they have a shot. They're going to make it competitive, I think.
I'm pretty set on the fact that they won't win this game. However, you do make a good point. They have been hot, but they're playing one of the hottest arms in baseball, which scares me. The Brewers have been really good, right? We mentioned what they did. They rattled off a 21-6 record in the month of September. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? That's a really, really good record in the month of September. However, their schedule was pretty soft in the month of September, right? You had a series with the Cardinals, you had a series with the Cubs. Otherwise, it was pretty much fluff from there. And they won the games they should have won, which is good. However, they didn't play a guy like Max Scherzer, and they don't have a bat like Christian Yelich. It scares me. Woodruff is no Scherzer, and the Brewers, in my opinion, just don't have enough firepower as the Nationals. The one thing they do have working for them, though, Michael, it's a one-game series. It's one game. Mm-hmm. You don't have to win 3 games. You don't have to win 4. You got to win the only one, and then you move on. It's survive and advance. So maybe they can, but I'm not very confident if I'm the Brewers.
I can understand your standpoint from that, where you're coming from. The Brewers also don't have a very strong rotation either. That has been their Achilles heel the entire season. Right. Their bullpen has been not very good. At least Craig Counsell can manage his bullpen, unlike Joe Madden, who is now no longer officially the Cubs manager. Yeah. So it's going to be a challenge. Scherzer, he's going to come out firing, of course. You're always going to want to send out your best guy for a playoff game like this, where it's one and done. You could go one and done, or you win and survive.
Now, do you trust a guy like Brandon Woodruff, which I don't think the Brewers do, right? The Nationals will probably ride Scherzer 6-7 innings, while the Brewers will do what got them so far in last season's postseason, which was short rotations. Let Woodruff throw 2 innings, then go to the bullpen, 1 inning each guy. We'll see if it pays off. I imagine that's probably the route they'll take again with Woodruff starting on Tuesday. But again, it's still concerning to me without Yelich and with Scherzer on the opposite mound.
That's a critical point, too, that you make, that the Brewers have just relied on using that rotation to win them ball games and, keep arms going throughout the game. It might, I don't know, this is a big if. It might help them,
it did last year.
In winning against the team like the Nationals, but when they have to go to the NLDS and play in a rematch against the Dodgers in the NLDS, that can only take you so far through a season. But I'm not saying that the Brewers have no chance, because they do have a chance. They made it this far, but it's definitely going to be a tough game for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, first pitch of the NL wild card is set in Washington for 7 p.m. Tuesday night, with the pitching matchup being Brandon Woodruff going up against Max Scherzer. The rest of the playoff field is set as well in the National League. The St. Louis Cardinals and the Atlanta Braves will face each other in NLDS, and the Los Angeles Dodgers will host the NL wildcard winner in the American League. The Minnesota Twins and the New York Yankees will play each other in the ALDS, and the Houston Astros will host the winner of the AL wildcard game between the Tampa Bay Rays and the Oakland Athletics. So guys, which teams look like they could make a little bit of noise in October, and what are your guys' World Series predictions?
So I'll start with noise. National League, I'm really big on every team that's not named the Milwaukee Brewers. And I love the Brewers, but I just don't see them making noise, unfortunately. The other 4 I could absolutely see making a run. I mean, I don't think anybody touches Los Angeles in the long run. That team is maybe the best in baseball. I think this might be the year they finally win the ring. So in the NL, I mean, I'm looking right at Los Angeles. In the AL, it's a similar situation. Minnesota has hit so many home runs, and Mike, being a Twins fan, you know this. Minnesota has been so good with the bats all year long. New York has been phenomenal. Houston has been the best team in the AL all year long. Not huge on either of those wild card teams in Tampa Bay, who has been super impressive all year long at Oakland. But if I had to will it down to the two that I think we'll see ultimately playing throughout the month of October, I will go with Los Angeles and Houston.
Rematch of 2017, huh?
You got it.
Well, I mean, I'm really excited that the Twins, were able to win a really weak AL Central division where the two top teams finished with over 90 wins. Well, Minnesota finished with over 100, but Indians and the Twins both finished with over 90 wins, and then, of course, the rest of the division had 60 wins or less.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was no reason how the Twins could not win the AL Central this year. Of course, you mentioned it. They're the team that led the league with the most home runs all year. I believe they hit 307 on the season, which I believe is the most in a season in Major League Baseball history. So they're making a bit of history themselves this year. But they do have a similar issue to what the Brewers have had, is that their rotation is not as strong as they are at the plate. So, they've had that issue too. The Brewers have had where they had brought in guys, from free agency and stuff like that, but it's not necessarily guys that, you look at and say, oh, he's definitely going to be like their top guy in the rotation. So it's going to come down to some really phenomenal pitching, I think, when they go against the Yankees on Friday at Yankee Stadium for Game 1 of the ALDS. I want to say they want to go to the World Series, but New York is just too strong, and for the past 15 years, ever since the Twins and the Yankees have played each other in the playoffs, the Yankees have won every single time. So I'm really hoping that streak breaks this year. So I'm going to say that my World Series prediction on my end is going to be between the Dodgers and I'll go with you. I'm with you on the LA-Houston train.
I think so. I think that's the easy pick.
All right. Well, after our final commercial break, we'll be doing a round of buy or sell. We'll be right back on the Sports Hub.
UW-Stevens Point is home.
It's a university where professors know your name and get you involved in research.
They inspire us to realize big dreams.
At UW-Stevens Point, sustainability is what we stand for.
Our beautiful campus encourages exploration, developing new fields, and problem solving for the real world.
It's a great place to launch your career.
UW-Stevens Point is home.
Apply today at uwsp.edu.
College has given me the flexibility to pursue my passions and my interests, and I've recreated my identity for myself aside from just being an athlete.
My greatest personal discovery has been that I am capable of doing things that I didn't know I was capable of doing.
To be able to study what I wanted to and continue to play the sport I love, all of those things came together very nicely in one package in Division III.
Welcome back. Let's do some buy or sell. First one, Alex, I'm pitching it to you. Daniel Jones will be the Giants' starting quarterback for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, I'm going to buy that. I mean, unless we get an injury. That would be the only warranty I could put on it. But I think absolutely Daniel Jones has looked pretty darn solid for the New York Football Giants. I've been impressed with the number 6 overall pick. We've talked about this before, Mike, off the air. And it's funny how football fans have flipped sides, right? Mm-hmm. New York fans hated the pick at number 6 overall, and now Danny Dimes has come to full life. I think he's probably the quarterback for the remainder of the year for New York.
I agree so too. The Giants drafted a quarterback from a basketball school, and I think everybody was making fun of them. But I don't think people had the opportunity to see what kind of quarterback Daniel Jones can be. He is very, very similar to Eli Manning, and that's pretty much the reason why the Giants drafted him. They saw another quarterback that they can develop and take over for Eli Manning when it comes time to move on, and in this piece now that they start in rebuilding the franchise. So he'll be the quarterback, I think, for the season. But as for Eli Manning's sake, I'm not sure what exactly his route is going to be, whether he goes somewhere else, like maybe a team that needs a quarterback, or he just spends out his time as a backup. Who knows?
I think he'd probably prefer to go the route of his brother, right?
Right.
Peyton did. He left Indianapolis, went to Denver. We'll see. I think Eli probably calls it a quits after this year, but I'm not an expert, so I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
All right. Well, Michael, this next one's going to you. The Minnesota Twins will hit less than 5 home runs in their series against the Yankees.
I threw this question in here to make it interesting. Of course, the Twins being the team league leading home run team this season. I want to say that I'm going to sell it, but there's at least 3 games that you play in the ALDS if you're not going to get swept, of course. So it'll be interesting. I'm going to say I'll sell it for now, but I really hope they prove me wrong and make it a really good series against New York.
Yeah, I think I'm going to sell it as well. We'll see. I trust New York's arms. However, I do trust Minnesota's bats. It depends how long the series goes. I really 5 is a tough number because I think 5 is a really good number. I'm not even going to make it pay. I'll sell it for now. I guess we'll sell. I'm selling it.
All right. The Badgers should be ranked higher than 8th in the AP poll.
Oof. I'm going to sell. Are you going to buy or are you going to sell?
I'm going to buy it, actually.
Okay, let's discuss
I'll
this.
make it interesting.
Yeah, let's discuss this. So your top 4 in no order is what? Alabama, Clemson. Who else is in there? Ohio State is 5. Georgia. Auburn is in there. Oklahoma. I'm just rattling off the top 7 now. What am I missing? LSU. And I think that might be 7. I don't know. I wasn't counting.
Yeah.
Regardless, there's a lot of good football teams there. It's hard to say it's still early. Right now, I'll sell it, especially you only win by 9 against Northwestern, unranked opponent. I think 8's a good spot. You saw Clemson barely sneak out a win against UNC, and they fell.
Yeah.
So I think I'm good with number 8 right now. Does that change throughout the year? Yeah, probably. But right now, I think 8 is, that might even be high. I don't know. I think there's too many good teams, and it's too early to tell exactly where they should be. Obviously, a blowout win against Michigan helps your case for being higher than 8. But again, a S showing against Northwestern makes it kind of interesting for me to say they're any higher than 8th.
I definitely wouldn't say that they would be top 4 worthy. There's no
Right.
way that, at this point in the season that I would consider them a top 4 team. But, maybe outside the top 5, like maybe 6 or 7, just a spot higher than 8th right now. I think a lot of people are not overlooking the Badgers, especially when you got Jonathan Taylor as one of the nation's best running backs. But yeah, you got to give a little bit more credit to them. They're a team that has been dominant the past few seasons. Of course, almost made the college football playoff 2 years in a row. So they've been up there, and I think they'll have a chance at the end of the year, though, to get up there.
I agree with that. I do think they have a chance at the end of the year, but you got to win some big ball games. And that one we keep bringing up, October 26th at Ohio State. If they win that game, they better propel to the top 4. But that's a ways out. They still got Michigan State in the way before then.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Kent State this weekend is on Paul Chris' agenda right now.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. I'd like to thank Alex and Michael for joining me on our show today, and a big thank you to all of our technical staff and all of their help to make this show possible. Be sure to check out our Facebook page at SPTV-UWSP Television and follow us on Instagram at SPTV_UWSP. You can also follow us on Twitter at SPTV-UWSP_sports. Lastly, check out the UWSP Athletics page for all things Pointer Sports. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on the Sports Hub.